Welcome back to the second episode of Brian's Deductions. I'm here with CT and Nate. Want to give a quick shout out to CT for giving the suggestion to make this decision for me to just extend the blog title to this level of content. This is going to be our first small group episode. So the thing we're looking at today is an old article that I made. So I thought that since the in-season tournament is starting tomorrow, it would be a good time as ever to look at a time where when Adam Silver was being asked about the in-season tournament and other things, about the potential of a reduced schedule, and that ended up becoming my first what if article on the page, and I made a proposed schedule that reduced the number of games. That reduced the number of for a reduced. I basically made a reduced schedule. So I brought CT and Nate on to evaluate the proposed schedule in retrospect. So obviously, we won't go too far into the article. If you guys want to read my explanations and things of that nature, you can check the article, which will be in the description below. But before we get into it, don't feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And within those comments, please leave suggestions on things that you may want us to talk about, because I understand that not everybody is just here for sports. So just give us some more ideas if you'd like to. So I guess with that, I guess we just dive straight into the situation. So originally, when I made the article, I thought that it would be best if the season number was 66 games. Because we had seen it be done before in the 2011-12 season, if I'm not mistaken, when there was a lockout, and the reduced amount of games would make the schedule a little bit easier to have less back to backs and things of that nature. I guess I'll start with CT. Do you think that was a fair amount of games, and is there anything would you change the number at all, given the new CBA requirements and things of that nature?
Well, before we even get started, I think I want to thank you for allowing me and Nathan to be the first guest on Brian's Deductions, the video format. Of course, JB has contributed on the article form of Brian's Deductions, but in the video format, we're the first guest. So appreciate you having us on. Glad that we were the ones to receive the invite, But some other people could have been here, but they just weren't special enough like us. So that's where that was. But in terms of the actual scheduling aspect, whenever it comes down to discussing altering the games, and this is in any league, I hate it when the NFL changed to 17 games. It's because it felt like it was historical comparisons between seasons and things like that. But if you consider 14 games, I think before 14 it may have been 12 to 14, 16, and now it's at 17 that we have now. So, changes is going to be inevitable. Of course, when money making is involved, the NFL values the dollar. So they viewed an extra week in the season as an ability to make more money. For the NBA, I don't know how realistic it is, just because of what I just said about the power of the dollar. 82 games, you're making more money than 66 games. I do feel like the quality of basketball will probably be better if it's a 66-game season that's more spread out. But that also goes back to my point of the historical aspect and comparisons, the stat comparisons, things like that. I feel like it would be very difficult to see career records broken if we have 66 games throughout a season for the span that we may see for, because if we enacted, say this happens next season, it'll be very difficult for players like Victor Wembanyama to achieve the career records that we would hope he may be able to achieve if he was still being able to play an 82-game season. Because you could say the 66 is less stress on the body, but still injuries are inevitable. So 82 game season, even if he was to get hurt, he would still miss time. Translate that over to 66 games, he could still miss time. So you could have seasons where he only plays 40 games, 50 games, and it'll be very difficult to really stack his career up next to the greats when we try to have debates 20 years from now when we're trying to see how he compares to the other big men. Just because they've had 82 game seasons, he's had 66. So just comparing those career numbers. But I do think the quality of basketball will be better because I think we'll see players playing more often. I think it'll be easier to not have the built-in rest games that players take throughout the season. I think that we'll see less of that. But like I said, I don't know. It is just because of how the dollar. Short Nate knows a lot about that. Money man.
Yeah, well, I guess before I get into it, appreciate you, Brian, for having us on. Like CT said, yeah, I mean, fundamentally, the biggest concern with, cutting the season down more so than anything is the CVA, right? And then also the revenue. I think the league doesn't feel any inclination to. I think your proposal in terms of, we talk about like player availability and like player injury, right? It makes a lot of sense on that front. But the only thing that would be really the argument for, reducing the season is more so how many games, right? Like in your article, I know you talk about 66, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a good number, 20 games, or the season reduced by 20%. So where was that, right? 66 games, right? 20% less, like you said. Then also it's happened before in the lockout year. I would say maybe like a 70 or a 72 game season would be more ideal. Just for the fact that like you're missing out on 10 games. I feel like hopefully networks wouldn't be too harsh about that. Obviously, like TV deals probably have to be restructured. Well, I don't know if we'll ever see, because I think ultimately, no matter what, if we do slash the season, players lose less money. Like even if it's like by 10 games, so there will be a fractional amount. I imagine guys, especially who like make mid-level deals or like a vet minimum dropping by, I don't know, like turning to like $1 million to like maybe like 800,000, right? If that's a new standard or something. I'm not sure how the numbers work, but I'm sure like those guys would feel a lot more than your superstar. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I think it would help the league, cut down on the injuries and it went on, especially like fan fatigue as you get to like, the end of the season before playoffs start. But yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, it's the money that moves the needle. So
I think when you look at, I think what Nate just said is if you decrease the season by 20%, contracts will also have to take that hit 20%. Basically, I would believe. I don't think not only do I not think the business side of the NBA would agree to this, but I don't think the players would also agree to this. Just because the whole thing with the games played decrease makes it seem like they're trying to protect the players. Players may feel like they don't need protection and they're losing money at the same time. So it's like, in the injury, like I said, the injuries are inevitable. But the thing I think the NBA is trying to prevent is these unnecessary rest games that most of the stars take. And the 65 game requirement, I say we see how that goes through this season. We have players like Kawhi. Has he missed a game yet this season?
Let me see.
I don't think he has. That might be a record. 5 games in, no missed games so far with Clippers for Kawhi. I don't know. He might be onto something. No, if the requirement isn't in place, I don't know if he's doing this, or it's just that he just is healthy for once. But I don't know. I like the idea. I think for the fan aspect, 66 games would work. I think the game quality would be more enjoyable, and I still think you would be able to have at least a game or two of basketball on every day. The way the schedule would be spread out, so you won't have to worry about not having anything on at all. But the business aspect just won't let this happen. I think honestly, as much as this may sound crazy, but I doubt they'll actually even consider extending the season. But I think they would lean closer to extending it than decreasing the game, just because of money. And you're already kind of seeing it with the in-season tournament. It's not more games, but it's like a way of them trying to get more eyes on the games that are already in place. It's still an 82 game schedule, but they're trying to make the games throughout seem more important, even though the general fan does not currently care. They're trying to make them care this year, trying to take the soccer model. Another thing that Nate is also very familiar with. That's why we got Nate on this video, and he's so well versed. That's why we got it. It's such a great component of the podcast, man. What you got on that?
Nah, I mean, that's an excellent point, and I think I do think that's actually a great segue because I was actually going to talk about this. So I think we talk about the in-season tournament, right?
Yeah.
And it's at its face value, that's something taken straight out of like European, or not even European football, but just when I say football, I'm talking about soccer, right? But taken out of soccer at the club level, right? Where you have these clubs who compete domestically. In this case, the NBA. That's you're playing for the NBA. You're playing you're playing to win the finals, right? Playing to win it all, but they'll have other competitions where they other tournaments occur during the season. This one's a little bit different, obviously, because the in-season tournament matters in terms of seeding for regular season games.
But while you doing that, I also wanted to. This is in regard to the in-season tournament, not the reduced game schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But for the in-season tournament, I'd be interested. I'm sure I want to see how this goes for this first year. But Nate kind of brought up a good point with how we may not care about the tournament, but in the long scheme of things, the games do matter in regard to seeding. I'd be kind of interested to see if the tournament being later in the year would increase the interest. Maybe, I don't want to say post All-Star break, but maybe if it is post All-Star break when the teams are really those, especially those 7, 8, 6 ranked teams that are either trying to avoid being in the play or trying to make the play in, trying to make sure they get a good spot in the play in. I'd be interested to see if the playing games being around that time of the year, seeing if the in-season tournament games being around that time of the year, seeing if the quality would be better, if people would be more interested, because that is honestly the time that I would say most people watch basketball is leading up to the playoffs, before the playoffs. Leading up to the playoffs is probably the most interesting time of the regular season. So if you add that to the season tournament on top of that, I think you may be able to get, I don't want to say people actually interested in the tournament, but it may actually kind of mean something from a sense. Because right now, you start an in-season tournament games, game 6, and nobody's going to care about the 6th game of the season and the Celtics are playing whoever's in that group. Nobody cares yet. But if the Heat are in the same group as, let's say, the Bulls, and the Bulls are the 10 seed trying to maintain that spot, and the Heat are the 6 seed trying to avoid the play, and that's a game that matters, The Heat lose, they may drop down to 7. Bulls win, they may continue to hold firm on that last playing spot. So stuff like that, maybe if they combine. But I don't know. That was just a thought of mine.
So that's an interesting thought, but I think obviously as you guys have already said, the biggest thing is they want to try to make earlier games in the season matter, because most people aren't, at least most casual fans probably aren't watching until around Christmas because football's on.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying, CT, but then the question would be, would there have to be some incentive to if the winner of the tournament gets to be a play-in safe team, as we've dubbed before, or what would
It has to mean something beyond the $1 million prize.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it this early in the season, because I'll be honest, I may not watch a single game of this tournament, and that's not because I have any interest in watching the tournament itself. But this is not. I'm not gonna come home from work and be like, "Oh my goodness, in-season tournament is on. Let me hold on. Can't watch Thursday night football. The in-season tournament is on." I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So it's they gotta make it mean something for me to watch it, and that's what I feel like. It's they gotta earn my. I'm not about to just watch it because of the NBA. I'm not. You ain't earning that for me. The playoffs, yes, I'll be seated and locked in every single game. But this in-season tournament, you gotta earn my view. I got better. I could be watching Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown. Well, AEW Dynamite. But I don't want to. I don't want to have to feel like I'm guilt tripping or not watching this because it's a tournament that has no lineage, no history. This is not something that is you can honestly compare it to when the WWE unveiled the Universal title. Nobody cared about it. Nobody cared. No lineage, no history, right? This
when they gave Seth that Fugazi heavyweight belt.
Come on, man, that red belt. That's what this tournament is.
I'm
no, he's talking about the new world championship for Seth.
No, man, this new one means something to me, man.
No, it don't. They just gave.
Technically, you could argue that the Seth one has some sort of lineage to it, but
the lineage.
They literally gave that joint to Seth that said, "Stop complaining about Roman." That belt means, yeah, that's literally the "Stop crying about Roman" belt. Because then it was going all over these interviews talking about Roman's not here all the time.
But that's the thing. The "Stop crying about Roman" belt, the belt that Roman owns, used to be the "Stop crying about the Brock" belt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had to unveil that new belt because, they had to bring a new belt on. It was a brand split. So now that belt actually meant something. So maybe the NBA could find a way to build this story with the in-season tournament where it actually means something, but you have to have some sort of incentive beyond $1 million.
So this is why we need to. So one, this is why we need the players to care for sure, and then two, we need the matchup that I brought up in the in-season tournament episode that we talked about that hopefully will be coming out at some point around this time.
Yeah, we do need a good final. We definitely need that.
Actually, I thought of something though, right? Like, if you think about the incentive, especially for guys, it's like the $500K, right? Each player gets $500K for winning team. Second place team gets $200K.
Yeah. And
I think the third place team gets $100K. I don't know if they have a third place pot, but the truly biggest incentive, right? Especially if this is going to be a type of and this dynamic we have, right, where you have teams who there's like role players on the team that definitely want to compete for the extra money, and then also the chance to go to Vegas near the latter half of this in-season tournament to be there. But I think one thing you can do, and this, I don't know, this may not work out for the best, is we talk a lot about like what feels like the conditions for like NBA Supermax these days are what you need to be like first team All NBA. Right, like you have to make some.
I think it's first team All NBA. It's either All NBA, or you have to win an award. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so MVP or DPOY. I think MVP, DPOY,
I'm pretty sure,
or All NBA.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna have an MVP for this tournament, especially in the finals. And I know they're probably not like all tournament league team. So if you're worried about superstars, getting involved, add this as a part of that Supermax like eligibility.
They trying to get people their money. I like it. They getting people their money, man.
That's where that big money mindset needs to come into play, man. You need to have this be a criteria for the Supermax contract. Nathan, great job. The only thing is they probably cannot enact that until the next CBA, right?
I guess.
think they can add it now.
I feel like that would be a situation where both sides would be fine with adding that to the CBA. Because if you're a player, that gives you another chance to get that Supermax.
Yeah, because if I'm Jordan Poole and I'm like, hold on, all I gotta do to earn a Supermax is lock in for this little tournament for 4 weeks. So
for a whole month, that's it.
Jordan Poole can lock in for 1 month. You don't need to make no All-Star, no All-NBA. Just be an all in-season tournament team. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good idea.
I think they just cooked up, man.
Yeah, but so for your idea, Nate, would that be they have to have that in addition to All NBA, or is it that or All NBA?
That's very cool. Honestly,
I feel like if you make it that or All NBA, it kind of
it's too much with the idea.
It is.
The idea is like, all right. Let's say like you're a French superstar. Let's say like, all right, you're not going to win MVP. You're not going to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's like,
why? Because you're French.
Okay, who's? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying like a French superstar. Like who's a guy like De'Aaron Fox? Like let's just say like you're phenomenal, right?
You said a French superstar.
Fringe. Like you're probably not going to make first team All NBA, but like you're that guy, right? If I just go cook up in this tournament it's over. Because I don't think, like, realistically, I don't think Jordan Poole will be all. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think he'll be all tournament like first team. But like,
yeah, not this year.
I feel like, yeah, and I feel like there'd be some superstars too who are just like top of the top, who are just like, oh, I can secure like the Supermax before the season even ends. Like, let me play, because the idea is more that I feel that more so to be like superstars will just have the incentive to play,
Absolutely.
where they can knock out that requirement beforehand. You know what I mean? Yeah, like I guess it might, and then hopefully what will happen is like there will be like a little bit of overlap between that all tournament league or all tournament first team and the actual first team at the end of the season. But if we do run to the case where there's like 5 unique guys for that all tournament team and then 5 for like all NBA, then yeah, you probably got to restructure that CBA eventually. That's where you run.
So I could see that,
like 10 Supermax guys.
I could see that, but I think because like once you get to that top 8, you have the sudden death things. I think the talent disparity is going to mean something at that point. So I don't know, unless like Jordan Poole were to make like a deep run and beat like Luka. Who are some other teams that might be in it? Like Luka, Denver if they had to play them, and then like say Boston or Milwaukee, then he's probably making an all tournament team. But
but the one thing for this, I like this proposal, but the one thing that the NBA may fight back on is this whole 65 game incentive that they've tried to create. If you've already earned that Supermax by the time December hits, that makes them not want to play in the rest. I mean, not them not wanting to play, but if they've already earned that Supermax, it's like, all right, I don't need to make All NBA anymore, because All NBA, you need to have that game.
I think you would still keep the incentive that they have to play to 65, so that way it's not just like, okay, I got it in December, I can just shut it down. So I think
maybe season.
No, for the in general, like I think they would still have like a certain game requirement you would still have to meet, even if you met the requirements in like say after the in-season tournament, you still would have to play those 60 to 65 games just to be able to say
to earn the Supermax.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean that could work, but then at the same time, it's like those two don't correlate, because the in-season tournament that ends in December, but you're going to tell me that I have to, like, honestly, say somebody legitimately gets a long-term injury in January after the tournament ends. You know, God forbid, but if somebody tears something in their knee, they were already all in-season tournament, but now since they tore something in their knee, and they are worthy of a Supermax, but then they're going to be told that they can't get one because they messed their knee up. So then it's like, that's repeated a lot. It's like, well, I would have been playing, but catastrophic injury, you know. So,
but I feel like if it's
start to take advantage of it, teams might
see. So that's
the
issue, because like if it's a legitimately catastrophic injury, then I think most people would just use common sense to be like, okay. But like if it's a situation where you're saying my back, like after December 13th, and you just obviously you can't check, as many NBA players have said, you can't really like. Check. You really can't check anybody's back. So if I just say my back hurts,
Brandon says the nice old core injury.
Yeah,
that's what Dame had 2 years ago, I think.
The core injury. So yeah, the core injury, back, mental health, anything just like that you can't obviously like
check.
Yeah, check. I was trying to figure out a better word to say than check, but
examine.
There we go. So. So yeah, so I see what you're saying. So it would be a little tricky, but I like Nate's thinking though on that, because that would definitely incentivize people to want to play for sure. So
yeah, I mean I think they got some stuff to figure out. I do think that I don't think it was kind of put together last minute, because we've heard rumblings about this for the past few years, but I do think like just sitting on this Discord, we've come up with some ideas to where you could kind of incentivize it. And I feel like I'm not going to say they didn't put into it, but I feel like if they really wanted to, they could have found a different way other than I don't want to say just $1 million, but these are millionaires who have $1 million dropping in the bank account every other day. So for this to be the one main incentive, $1 million, and that's only if you win the whole thing, like a team like Pacers, who are a good team, probably don't really have a real shot at winning the entire thing as a whole. What's the incentive? If you already know in your mind that you're probably not going to get first place, you're going to aim for third place. And what did you say the prize was?
100,000, I think Nate said.
It's cool, but they get that every other day already, at least. So it's like I feel like we've come up with things that may not be immediately practical, but it's something that they could work with. And I'm sure if they spent double, triple the time that we spent on this call, they could have came up with something.
I feel like you could come up with a game.
These are smart businessmen. They could have came up with something.
Cause I feel like you could come up with a game structure like a tier list almost, like so you could still keep Nate's idea, but like you would have to play a certain amount. You would still have to play a certain amount of games, and there would still be like exceptions to the rule. But and then like obviously backup plans for if somebody tries to circumvent and things of that nature. But yeah, that's.
And you'd have to have those exceptions extremely carefully written out.
Absolutely.
Very carefully written out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to like how the layout is now. I'm gonna group them into two separate things. So the first group would be divisional opponents. You would play 3 games per team. So obviously every division has 4 teams. So you would be playing 12 games, and then the remaining 25 teams you would play twice. So obviously that adds up to 62 games. We'll get to the other 4 in a second. But what do you guys think about that grouping between divisions and then non-division opponents?
So you're saying you're playing the 4 teams in your division 3 times?
Yeah.
And then everybody else twice?
Yes. And with the non-division, just for me to be specific, it would be basically a home and home. So that way, both teams would have a chance to have a game at their place.
I think it works in theory, but the way that playoff seeding works, I would like to be able to play some of my teams in my conference more than twice.
Okay.
Because if you split it home, tiebreakers start to become a little bit tricky. Like maybe if you had that third game, I don't know. That's where the issue may come with 66 games.
Nate?
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to think. Like it's even numbers. So I think every team in theory should be able to play half their games at home, half their games on the road, right? That shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, kind of like the same thing like CT said. I think actually no, I think I think it works. I think the only thing is yeah, because in my head when I was thinking about like doing 72 games, it's actually really similar to you. Like play in your conference or play every team in your conference at least 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other conference twice. And I was thinking like only use divisions for like tiebreakers and playoff seeding. So kind of similar to yours. I do like the dynamic in terms of what you proposed with regards to like the divisional finish. I think that would be interesting because a lot of the times, like I don't know, like I feel like divisions in the NBA don't matter as much.
They do not. So I think with the 72 games, I just added it up. If you play every team in your conference 3 times, and then the other conference twice.
Yeah, that's 72. That's 72. Yeah, so that's a good.
I would prefer that idea because divisions in theory don't really matter. Unless there's going to be something that makes them matter with the 66-game schedule, they don't matter. It's just how close you are to each team. But with a 72-game schedule, 3 times in your conference, 2 times outside your conference, I think that would work better.
That makes sense because then you have all the tiebreakers. So I'm going to move quickly to the second one because Nate kind of touched on it a little bit. So the first part was divisional finish opponents. So kind of like the NFL. Well, first there's 6 divisions in the NBA. So that's why it works perfectly because you got 3 in each conference. But basically for your divisional finish opponents, it would be kind of like the NFL where like they have a first place schedule, second place schedule, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if a team finishes first in their division, then they would play obviously let's say a team in the Atlantic Division, which is one of them in the Eastern Conference, beats the team in the Central, and then I think it's Southeast Division, if I'm not mistaken. So you would play the team that's first in that. So, for example, like the Celtics would probably play the Bucks, and then in the Southeast, probably we'll say Miami. So you play the Bucks and you play the Bucks and you play the Heat. So those would be your divisional finish opponents. And then the other thing was a random third game matchup for your last two. It would still be within your conference, and it wouldn't be a divisional opponent. Now that would be, I don't know how the league would designate that, so that one would be more one that I kind of delegated to the league to decide. But that would be one where, like, let's say Boston, for some reason, Boston finished second in the Atlantic Division, and Milwaukee finished first. You wouldn't be playing against Milwaukee in that situation, so that would probably be your random third game, so you could have a tiebreaker. But obviously, if you're playing Milwaukee, you probably play Cleveland. I think Cleveland and Miami. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cleveland and Milwaukee are in the same division. So maybe Cleveland becomes that random third game instead. So you have two random games, and then you have the two divisional finish games that added up to 66. So what are you guys' thoughts on that one?
I like the 72. I don't know. I don't know if the average NBA fan will be able to comprehend.
To keep up with everything? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the good thing about, especially now, the one benefit about 82 games, it's like you can kind of tune in at any point of the year, and it wouldn't be too hard to like catch a lot of understand what's going on. Right? I think if you do reduce the season and then you kind of interlope on like how there's, I guess it's a good thing, right? About like the NBA being, the regular season being that long, though. It's really easy for a casual viewer just on like a random night to like catch it felt like a national televised game, like a Tuesday or Thursday. Yeah, I think you run the risk of, if you reduce it a little too much, then I don't know. It depends, right? Because the NFL gets like, it only has 16 games, obviously for the nature of the sport, but I don't know. Maybe that's just more of a dynamic of like football in America, or like how.
I think they can get away with it because it's so. I think they can get away with it because it's so scarce. Like, because, like you said, it's 17 games. So every game practically basically matters. Same thing with, like, say if you're a college football fan, 12 games. Basically, if you lose one, your team is almost on the brink of not being able to play for the championship. So like every game is almost like sudden death, sudden elimination type situation. So I think the number of games is definitely a thing, because we even see, like, in baseball, like, it's 162 games. So you can honestly come in at any time of the season and see and watch a game, but it's hard to keep up with every single game because, of course, it's a lot of commitment for 100 plus days.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. CT, you got anything to add?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, I think kind of hit the nail on that in terms of that question.
Okay. Well, I guess any final thoughts before we conclude?
I think with the proposed, I think the 66 is probably a safe option, just for the sake of the players, of course. I don't think it's a practical option. I do think 72 works, especially with the proposal that Nick just provided. But again, I don't think that the money people will allow that to happen. So it'll probably still be the 82 for the rest of our lives, honestly. And in-season tournament, I do like the different things that we came up with. We send that to the NBA, they may have to. They may have to actually read it. You know, we came up with a couple good things. I think Nate's idea with the
Supermax eligibility.
Yeah, Supermax eligibility. I think that works great. You know, my initial idea was, just stacking it on top of the already watched games, but I can understand that they're trying to make the early season games watchable as well. So I think that's why Nate's idea works great. And, the fine print will have to be figured out with that one. But we can get our people on it, and we'll have that sent to the NBA office ASAP. Nate is already there, so he should be able to just run it over, take care of that for us. He's the one who came up with the idea. Type it up, print it out, have the lawyers review it. And the NBA will be able to have a collaboration with What's the Play as well. NBA X WTP.
Amen. Nick?
Then I can have Adam Silver on the Mingles cast.
Yeah, I guess. I think moving forward, I feel like ultimately you just got to find a way to reward the players in the tournament. I think that would put the play like on the show up. I think ultimately too. I think the good part though is like we look at like how the NBA season is turning up right now, right? Like the Grizzlies haven't won a game yet. Miami, last in the league right now. These are still like on paper at least like rather they're not terrible teams constructed. So I think the way that like the league has looked this year in terms of like parity. And since these games will still matter, like in regular season to the regular season, I think like and I think it's good that they started it this early too, right? Like I think you'll still see like competitiveness from teams you would have expected to be better this year. So I think Miami, like I think on full force, and then Ja Morant will be back at some point, right? And then they'll be in the mix. And I think it has worked. I think this, as a result of that, as a result of like the growing parity in the league, well, what we're seeing right now, they could easily flip after like one or two free agencies. I think it will invite competitiveness in that front. Ultimately you need some type of reward system to incentivize superstars to play consistently.
I agree with your point, Nate, where that you talked about. 'Cause I think that might be part of the issue as well with CT's proposal, because there may be a point like even though the CBA is meant to curb this, there may be teams that may say, well, hey, we're going to rest our star player in mid-March, and maybe that's when the tournament is like just starting to get underway. Even though you have those important games that CT talks about where like you have the playing teams trying to move up in seeding, and you got things of that nature. You may have the teams who maybe already are just like, all right, we're not playing for the play-in, and we're just gonna rest our guys. So, I mean, it's great ideas that we're given from everybody today. Again, wanna thank Nate and CT for joining. Appreciate y'all. Definitely appreciate Nate for coming up with these ideas. We would definitely be sending these off to the NBA. So if y'all see them, y'all know where you heard it first. Again, this is episode 2 of Brian's Deductions. A lot more to come. Hopefully this will be. Hopefully we'll have some more group episodes on the Mingles cast and other solo projects as well. So that's all for me. Thank you guys again for coming out, and stay tuned for the next.